Today we're checking out my 2002 Corvette Z06. Hi, my name is Michael and I like cars. I picked this one up for just under $14,000 with about 100,000 miles on it. It's low and wide with a long hood and basically has a footprint of a small SUV despite only seating 2 people and not having a lot of interior storage. Compared to the base C5 Corvette, the Z06 has about 55 more horsepower and a more aggressive suspension and transmission setup, and it also weighs a little bit less. However, it only comes in a fixed roof coupe, which is a real bummer because I really love the target tops. The rear of this car features the classic 4 round circular taillights that have been on all Corvettes since the 2nd generation Stingray and were only recently changed for the C7 generation to be more rectangular. The exterior of the car also features functional air ducts for cooling the brakes and quad tailpipes to top it all off. Also, check out the pop-up headlights, which honestly might be my favorite exterior feature of this car. Under the hood, we can see the glorious LS6 small block V8 engine. The engine produces 405 horsepower from the factory, but this one has a tune on it that bumps the power up just slightly. For a car that only weighs 3,100 pounds, it's seriously a ton of power. This car has leaf springs on it, so if you look inside here, you can actually see that there's no springs. All the springing is done by a giant leaf suspension that goes all the way across this car, and then it's got one wheel on each end. People argue all the time whether it works better or not. In my everyday driving, I think it works really, really well. But that's something you don't see a whole lot on cars, especially sports cars. This Corvette has some really popular mods on it, so let's take a look and show you what they are. So this exhaust on the car is not stock. So these are B&B, which stands for Billy Boat Bullets. It's pretty much the loudest exhaust they make. They're super, super popular for the Corvettes. For my taste, they're actually a little bit loud, but they do sound really, really awesome. So in a second, you'll get to hear what that sounds like. Corvette has some aftermarket seats in it. For more information on the seats, I'll put a link in the description down below, so check it out. Another really popular mod for this car is the shifter. So aftermarket shifters are super popular for a good reason, because the stock shifter is super long and it's absolute trash. So this is actually a C5 Z06 shifter with a slightly shortened mod on it. So it works really, really well for this car. It makes the shifts really, really short. The last mod I want to show you is called the reverse zip tie mod. But essentially what it is you remove the stock air box, you take your stock air filter, and using zip ties, just strap it onto the intake backwards. And I admit, it's a super, super ghetto mod, but people say you can get 10, 15, 20 free horsepower from this, and also a little bit of weight reduction from removal of the stock air box. Once inside the car, I thought visibility would be horrible because of how the car is shaped, but the side windows are large and the hood tapers off nicely for surprisingly great visibility. The steering wheel in the Corvette is decent. Grip is actually pretty thick, and they have these notches all the way down here, so you can actually get the 9-3 grip on this wheel, so that's pretty great. The instrument cluster on this car actually looks really, really cool. So you can see the checkered flag pattern. It's a little bit more obvious in person, but at night when it lights up, it's awesome. And it's got basically everything you need. It's pretty clean and it's a pretty good instrument cluster. Over here off to the left side, you have some driver controls for the different displays, but the coolest one is definitely this one, which controls the brightness of the heads-up display. And this will allow you to move the heads-up display up and down. The side controls are pretty standard, but what's really, really cool about this car is that it actually had memory seats stock, and you don't really expect that from a 2002 car. Obviously, I tore out the seats, so these don't work, but if you do leave the stock seats in there, you actually get memory seats in a Corvette, a 2002 Corvette. In my opinion, the radio and AC controls in the Corvette look hideous. When I was a kid, my parents had an Astro van, which is about the least cool car you could possibly have, and I remember the controls in that van look pretty much exactly the same as these. Interior storage in this car is pretty abysmal. Other than the glove box, there's a little cubby which doesn't really fit anything, and a single cup holder, which is so shallow you can't actually put cups in there without them spilling or falling out as soon as you start driving. There's also a little bit of storage space inside the center console, but like the rest of this car, you really can't fit much in it. Fortunately, the Corvette's trunk is fairly usable and has these weird shaped cutouts all over the place. However, the space is shaped in a way that makes it hard to get anything big in here, such as boxes or a suitcase. Also, as you can probably see, there's no spare tire and the car doesn't come with run flats, so if you blow a tire, your only choice is basically to call a tow truck. This car also does have a Bose factory stereo system. I wouldn't say it's the worst stereo I've ever heard, but it is definitely the worst Bose branded stereo I've ever heard. Early 2000s GM vehicles were not known for their build quality, and this Corvette is no exception. These interior panel gaps are large enough to lose things in, the driver's side seatbelt gets stuck, the center armrest falls off, this weather stripping came loose, and there's some holes in the passenger side door where a trim piece used to be. Fortunately, all the pennies saved in these areas were invested into the engine, suspension, and transmission, which are known to be quite reliable in the C5 Corvettes. Despite all of these flaws though, overall, I think the interior of this car still looks pretty cool in a retro, sporty kind of way. Now let's take this thing out on the road and see how it does. The first thing you notice about this car once you take it out is how freaking loud it is. With this exhaust on there, it's really hard to hear anything else except for the exhaust. Because of how long the car is, it tends to scrape over bumps and dips as you drive along. The car also has a huge turning radius, and these things make it really hard to park and somewhat annoying to use as a daily driver. Alright, so let's turn onto this road over here and see how well this car accelerates. Second. Whoa! Whoa! Oh man, this thing is super, super fast. So it has a 0 to 60 time, I think somewhere in the high 3 seconds. It's so fast. It's almost unusable on the roads. That's how fast this car is. Something surprisingly good about this car is the ride quality. You would expect like a Z06 Corvette to, be super, super uncomfortable and really harsh, but the ride quality in this car is actually fantastic. It's really, really comfortable. Surprisingly, these cars get pretty good gas mileage. Even the way I drive, I'm averaging over 20 miles per gallon. Just super unexpected for a V8 with 400 plus horsepower and this type of performance. But I think where this car really shines is when you really take it out to the mountains or the canyons. It's just fantastic how well it handles. The steering feel in this car is good. It's probably not the sharpest or best feeling steering I've ever used, but it is pretty good. It weights up nicely when you turn, and it does give you a good feel for what the car is doing. But really, the limits on this car are just insane. You can go around corners so fast, and it really accelerates so quickly. It's just a ton of fun, and it's honestly just like a really, really fast car. So that's my review of the 2002 C5 Z06 Corvette. I really like the classic Corvette styling and the powerful and reliable drivetrain. And the price, it's unbelievable that you can pick one of these up for less than $14,000 and get even better performance in much more expensive cars, such as a Porsche 911 or a BMW M3. Personally, I think the prices for the C5 Corvettes have basically hit rock bottom, and it will only go up in the future as these cars become more collectible. However, the Corvette is definitely impractical and it's plagued by some build quality issues, and the Corvette definitely isn't for everyone. But if you're looking for a fast weekend car, something to maybe show off in, or a track car on a budget, this Corvette should be on your short list of cars to look at. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video.